Hi, and welcome to our first outside salesperson webinar for the year. We've got a nice agenda for you today on evaporative emissions. So let's get rolling. First thing we'd like to do is just go over our training schedule for 2026. All of the schedules or all of these sessions are going to be held at the same time slot that we're doing right now. So you can go ahead and take your phone, scan that QR code, register for upcoming sessions, especially ones that are on topics that are especially interesting to you. Now, this is definitely a growing category, right? So if we go back to 2019, evaporative emissions was the seventh most common reason a check engine light was triggered. But as time goes on, it's risen in popularity. Now, we don't have data for 2025 yet, but if we did, I would suspect it would probably be number four or number five. But you can see this has been growing. It was number six in 23, number five in 2024. And we're going to talk a little bit on the next slide as to why this category is growing. So something interesting happened back in 2014 that you probably didn't know anything at all about, right? But it's having a big impact on parts sales today. So going back almost 12 years ago, the federal government did a couple different things that changed how new vehicle manufacturers have to design and engineer EVAP systems. The first thing that vehicle manufacturers were forced to do is significantly improve their leak detection systems. Secondly, the government changed the allowance for hydrocarbons that can be emitted before a check engine light is triggered. But what they actually did was they cut this allowance in half, meaning that check engine lights are going to come on more frequently. Now, this first started rolling out back around 2017, model year vehicles. Vehicle manufacturers were forced to have full compliance by 2025. So a lot of the EVAP opportunities that you're seeing that are coming into your customer shops now are really on later model vehicles. It's a lot of 2019, 2020 stuff. So you might be wondering what happened. Well, this is what happened. All of this is going to lead to very strong sales of EVAP components over the next couple of years. The other thing that's really going to matter even more than it did before is the quality and the engineering of the parts that you're recommending and selling. On these older systems that weren't as sophisticated, oftentimes people could get by putting on a part that was pretty good or acceptable quality. But the systems are much more sophisticated now. Tolerances are much tighter. The other thing that we're just starting to see happen too is a wider array of EVAP components that are being sold. Specifically, we can relate this to hoses. Hoses were not a big category on vehicles that were built prior to this legislation, but these more sophisticated systems are really driving a quick explosion in sales of hoses. So really what we're going to go over today, a nice overview you'll see from our training team on how this system really works. We're going to discuss the different types of leak detection systems vehicle manufacturers are using, how and why specific components fail. We're going to offer some great tech tips that you can use when you're troubleshooting with your service provider customers. We're going to speak to some of our engineering improvements for durability, give you a nice overview or survey of the competitive landscape with what else is out there, and then also dig into the sales support materials that are available to you so you can take some of what you learned today and bring it to the street. So with that, we'll turn it over to Patrick from our training team.
All right. Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate it. So there are basically two main functions of the EVAP system. There's fuel vapor storage and the removal of vapors. The animation on the slide here shows the path that the fuel vapors or hydrocarbons take once they have found their way into the EVAP system. So let's say you pull up to the pump and your fuel gauge is riding on empty. It's pretty safe to say that your fuel tank is full of fuel vapors. In older vehicles, when we filled up the tank, the fuel vapors in the tank would simply exit through the filler neck, giving you a really good whiff of gas as the vapors smack you in the face. But with EVAP emission systems, those same vapors don't escape into the atmosphere while at the pump. The vapors are part of a contained system, and they flow into the vapor canister from the fuel tank, as we can also see in the animation with that yellow line going from the fuel tank to the canister. Um, how it works is the vapor canister is full of activated charcoal that adsorbs, and that's with a D. So it adsorbs the fuel vapors. Now, what adsorbs means is that the fuel vapors are just sort of hanging onto the surface of the charcoal temporarily. The charcoal does not ab with a B, zorb or internalize the vapors. With the charcoal adsorbing the fuel vapors, these vapors are really easily, they wick away from the charcoal and can be pushed through the system by fresh air quite easily. When the canister is full of hydrocarbons and ready to be emptied of its fuel vapor, and the vehicle is at a steady cruising speed or under acceleration, both the fresh air vent valve and the purge valve open. We have to remember that before the purge valve opens, the engine is pulling a vacuum on the other side of the purge valve while it's still closed. So when the purge valve does open, fresh air rushes through the vent valve that we see at the bottom of the animation in the form of those moving blue dots, right? This fresh air then enters the canister, mixes with the fuel vapors, and then pushes those stored fuel vapors out of the canister through the purge valve and into the intake manifold. Then the vapors are drawn into an engine cylinder where they'll be mixed with fuel and combusted. So basically, all of this is done so that we don't release the extra fuel vapor into the atmosphere, while also being able to recycle that flammable fuel vapor back into the combustion chamber of the vehicle. And then overseeing the system operation is the fuel tank pressure sensor that sits on top of the fuel tank. And it's constantly looking for leaks in the system by checking system pressure and then reporting back to the control module. And then, in accordance with a federal mandate, manufacturers must now have that EVAP leak detection system that actively tests the system for leaks. So, just like Aaron touched on in an earlier slide, the new EVAP regulations being implemented by the EPA and those with those let me scoot back. Those are being implemented by the EPA, and with those regulations that are being implemented comes a lot of latitude as to how the manufacturers can decide to develop and improve their leak detection systems, and really how to lower the number of hydrocarbons released into the atmosphere before that check engine light turns on. And this is where we get the variety of leak detection systems that we see in cars today. There's not a one-stop shop for leak detection system design. So I'll take you quickly through several different types of leak detection systems that you might see on the road today. The first being the ESIM, or the Evaporative System Integrity Monitor, which is something that you'll see primarily with Chryslers. The ESIM is actually attached directly to the EVAP canister and uses weights and a diaphragm to mechanically monitor and test that the EVAP system is sealed. Just as an aside, these eSIMs are typically a relatively high volume item. Secondly, a lot of European manufacturers use mechanical leak detection pumps, which use a vacuum controlled by an electronic pump that pressurizes the system under certain conditions to verify that it's sealed and not leaking. And then the last two types of detection systems either rely on an electric pump to create positive pressure in the system to check for leaks, or an electric vacuum to create suction to check for any leaks. So it's all about creating pressure to check for leaks. And where the pressure pump forces pressure in the system to check for leaks, the electric vacuum uses engine vacuum or natural cooling induced vacuum from the fuel cooling over time to create a negative pressure to check for the leaks. So if you happen to have a car that uses an electric leak detection system, like many Toyotas or Fords or GMs, you'll notice that many times you'll be walking up to the car in a garage or at night and it's making noises. It's very likely that it's just the electronic pump running an emissions self-test after the vehicle has been turned off for a couple of hours and has had some time to cool down a bit. So when it comes to EVAP components, the big question is how do they fail? The main culprits are typically just going to be wear and tear caused by good old time and road conditions. This wearing of the system may lead to leaks, stuck or broken valves, cracked lines, and possibly electrical issues. It's important to remember where these systems are located. They're typically found on the bottom of the vehicle. Brutal road conditions, potholes, debris, along with heat, vibrations, and possibly even poor OE design can all play possible factors in how quickly these components may fail. Also, if the driver is constantly topping off the vehicle fuel tank while at the pump, they're actually creating conditions where the charcoal in the vapor canister could become saturated with liquid fuel, and this could prematurely or permanently damage the EVAP system. So just keep in mind the canister is meant to store only vapors, not liquid fuel. And this brings me to our pro tips. So, number one, when dealing with a failed purge valve, a typical response is to just replace the valve and move on with life. Many times there are underlying issues within the system that replacing only the purge valve will not solve. So in addition to replacing the purge valve, we strongly recommend replacing the vapor canister as well. Remember, a failed canister can contaminate the entire EVAP system. Moving down to the second tip, I want to point out where to find additional information and insights about the EVAP system. I highly recommend checking out the Power Hour video playlist on our Standard brand YouTube channel. That being the case, make sure to scan the QR code on the right side of the slide to access the video playlist on our channel. Now these videos are really they're really designed to support technicians and DIYers looking for a much deeper dive into the EVAP emission system, but there are lots of great takeaways, discussions, graphics, and whatnot that can help explain the ins and outs of the system. So highly recommend tuning into those videos. So this month we added a new key off EVAP diagnostics video. And in some earlier videos, we covered EVAP diagnostics on turbocharged engines and also EVAP diagnostic tips. So make it a point to check out those videos and give everybody just a couple more seconds to get your phones out and take a picture of that QR code before we hit the next slide. And then thirdly, just wanted to highlight that once an EVAP repair has been made, it's always a best practice to run a self-test to ensure that no diagnostic trouble codes or DTCs have come back around, lighting up the check engine light on the dash again. After an EVAP repair, pressure or vacuum leak detection tests with the help of a scan tool will definitely confirm that the system is in good order and working as it should. And then lastly, sometimes we come across leaks that are so small that no diagnostic trouble codes really pop up. These EVAP leaks can oftentimes be difficult to find. One of the best ways to locate small EVAP leaks in the system is to use a smoke machine. This is definitely not something that we'll have at the house or necessarily in all shops, but it's a great problem-solving tool best used by the professionals that diagnose and repair those potential EVAP issues. Well, hopefully this overview on the EVAP system, the common failure points, and the pro tips we shared will help open up some meaningful conversations for you. And with that, my time is up, and I'll turn the presentation back over to Ed with the product development team.
Thanks, Pat. Let's talk about products. When you reach for the standard box, this is what you'll expect to find inside. Parts that have gone through the R&D process. We have 15 fully equipped research R&D facilities around the world, including LIC, which is our headquarters. You also get precision manufacturing because we're also, for your information, we're also a tier 1 aftermarket supplier. We have 21 manufacturing facilities, including Greenville, South Carolina, and Independence, Canada's, which specialize in emissions control components. You also get lab tested and qualified parts along with dynamic in-vehicle testing at our testing center in Texas. Additionally, for every part in the box, you get sales support and training resources from the standard team on demand through our training programs, our video library, and you get support from our marketing and category management assistants. The product management team continually monitors emission-related recalls and TSBs to identify opportunities where standard might offer a solution. A great example of this involves failing purge solenoid valves on a number of late model GM vehicles, including the Enclave, Encore, and Traverse. Standard manufacturers parts designed for improved durability to replace these failing OE units. Let's take a deeper dive into a couple of those. Here's one example of an OE purge solenoid valve on GM vehicles known to prematurely fail where the seal on the plunger assembly cracks. We rehauled the design of the plunger assembly so that the plunger is kept in better and more consistent alignment, which reduces wear on that seal, resulting in a longer lasting part. And then here's another example of an OE unit on a Ford vehicles that fails because the plunger in their purge solenoid breaks down, and the debris from the plunger can cause the valve itself to stick open. So we redesigned the plunger by removing the cookie bites in that seal around that plunger and reinforcing the plunger with ribs to make it less prone to tearing. In doing so, the plunger is less prone to breaking down and effectively extends its service life within the solenoid. The EVAP system is complex and sensitive in order to meet regulatory requirements. This makes the quality of the EVAP products critical to a vehicle's performance, fuel economy, and emissions. Here are 3 things you should look out for in emissions products that you recommend to your customers. All the related parts for a complete repair. Remember, these are parts that operate in a complex system, and your supplier should be able to service the entire system if needed, not just cherry pick the best sellers. 2, parts that have been lab tested and vehicle tested. Testing on bench only tests the part's static performance. Testing in vehicle ensures that the part functions as expected in a dynamic vehicle environment. And lastly, this is important. We have to be careful in cases where we do deviate from the OE design. It is only for improved durability and a longer service life. We make no changes to how the part functions, or how the part performs, and how it interacts within the vehicle system. We offer almost 1,200 components in our EVAP program, and this wide coverage is critical to capitalizing on service opportunities for newer vehicles. Our newly introduced hoses, as mentioned earlier, for example, is a rapidly growing category, and no one comes close to our coverage in this category. To make things simple, here are the EVAP components that you should be keeping an eye on. These are the big movers that you should have on your shelves. These are the top 10 parts from each of our top 3 performing EVAP subcategories, our Canister Purge Solenoids, Canister Purge Valves, and Canister Vent Valves and Solenoids. This shopping list alone will give you 67% EVAP coverage. Sales of EVAP components have often spiked as soon as it gets hot and come out of warranty. Now is a great time for you to make sure you are ready for the selling season and increase demand of EVAP components for late model vehicles. So what does up and coming mean? These are parts that we've released in the past few years. So for example, EHH041 and CP122 we've released back in 2023. We'll talk a bit more about the CP122 a little later. We've gone over shopping lists, so let's compare now our offering to our competition. The numbers don't lie. Standard leads the aftermarket when it comes to full line EVAP coverage. Standard has breadth of coverage, depth of coverage, and we're competitively priced. Speaking of competition, for your information, late last year we caught wind of a new competitor, Motorrad, who we are expecting to launch a large short line of EVAP components sometime this month. As we would with any new competitor, rest assured we have our finger on the pulse and are proactively monitoring and adapting our EVAP product offerings to compete. From our experience, short line suppliers typically can't meet the demands of the industry. It takes 165 different canisters, for example, to cover 90% of sales, and 213 for 95% coverage. We also like to add value where it makes sense. For example, all of our fuel vapor canisters for Chrysler and Stellantis vehicles already include a new eSIM. We continue to command the EVAP space because Standard is also a Tier 1 aftermarket manufacturer. We pay attention to every detail of every part. The eSIMs are exclusive to Chrysler and Stellantis vehicles, and their main purpose is to report if the EVAP system is sealed completely. So it's critical that our LDP 14, as shown here, where we designed and manufactured at our Greenville facility, matches the OE eSIM, even down to the H-shaped cross-sectional profile of the O-ring. Leak detection pumps are one of the more complex components in the EVAP system. And as the name suggests, they allow the EVAP system to be pressurized for the vehicle to perform tests for leaks. Given their complexity, you shouldn't be surprised to hear that they require expert manufacturing to perform correctly, and our incredible team at the SMP Greenville facility has risen to the occasion, designing and manufacturing several of our most popular pumps to match OE specifications and set the aftermarket standard for quality and durability. In addition to offering the most complete program, we also offer the smartest product offering. As I mentioned earlier about the CP122 as one of our up-and-comers, all of these OEGM numbers use the exact same canister purge pump. The only difference are the brackets. Our CP122 is a direct replacement for all these OE numbers, allowing you to cover millions of popular GM vehicles with just one standard part number. Full line coverage means we offer everything needed for a complete EVAP repair. The 2019 Ram 1500 shown here with the 5.7 liter Hemi and standard fuel tank is our most recent example where we have a standard part for every part in its EVAP system. We also offer options for multiple configurations of this vehicle, such as the Pentastar 3.6 liter and extended fuel capacity models. This is just to reiterate that we provide the breadth of coverage that our competition does not. Another big benefit of our EVAP program is that almost 80% of our EVAP components are manufactured in North America. This helps ensure a more stable supply chain. Most competitors are sourcing components entirely from China and other low-cost countries. We also offer complete programs in other popular emission categories like crankcase ventilation, EGR, and diesel emissions, which includes the diesel EGR valves. Customers will buy what parts professionals recommend, and at this stage, we need to make sure that the audience understands the testing and validation that goes into qualifying our parts for production launch. We perform life cycle and end-of-line testing. We also perform extreme and accelerated testing similar to how OEs do it, including wear, thermal cycling, thermal shock, salt fog, vibration testing, and more. We also do dynamic on-vehicle testing at our test center in Texas to ensure that the products that we make behave as expected in different driving conditions and vehicle loads. The end result is a quality part that meets not only fit, form, function, and regulatory standards, but also have improved durability. With that, I'll hand things over back to Aaron from marketing.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you very much, Ed. So I think Patrick and Ed did a great job of going over the program, why quality parts are so important. What I'd like to take a minute to do is just give you just a short overview of the printed materials that we have for you to really take this message to the street. All of these can be found under standardbrand.com. The top of that, you'll see something that says digital resources. You can click on that, and then there's a search bar. You can type EVAP, and PDFs of all of our EVAP components will come up. The other thing you can do is if you have a local rep, go ahead and reach out to that local rep and ask that you want some of these materials so you can take them to your service provider customers. But we have a 6-page brochure that outlines our entire EVAP program, all of the parts that are available with that, and we highlight some engineering improvements. We also have some additional detail on the up-and-comers that Ed went over. Again, those are numbers that have been released in the last couple years that are starting to see very, very strong sales out at the store level to shops. We have a nice single-page piece on the CP122, that pump that Ed just talked about. And then if you need to tell a story of the entire emissions program, something beyond EVAP, we have a detailed 8-page brochure that's available that really outlines the entire program. Video is obviously something that's it's very, very big for us. We spend a lot of time here creating videos. We've been able to build out a YouTube channel with over 750 videos and about 90,000 followers now. But what I'd like to quickly bring some attention to are a couple of newer videos that we've created for parts professionals about evaporative emissions. One we released late last year, episode 13, will give you a really nice overview of the system. And the more recent one talks about how legislation is fueling the growth of this category. All you have to do is scan that QR code right there. That'll take you right to the playlist on our YouTube channel, and you can see all of the videos that are in this series. So yeah, thank you very much for tuning in. Just to bring things home, the things you're getting with this program is the industry's best and smartest coverage in the category, the related items you need to be able to offer your customers a complete service, products that have been tested not just in the lab, but also on vehicles, specific engineering improvements where it's appropriate, so you can offer your customers parts with additional durability over the OE design. And as we just went over, we really try like heck to provide you folks with all of the printed and digital materials to help you do your job, as well as technical training and free training events such as this, just to keep you up to date on the latest trends within specific categories, so you can certainly sell more parts. So that's what we have for you today, and thank you very much.